We're going to try it again. Look at that. This is why. Boy, this is no different than radio, I tell you right now. So we are live on. This is a brand new situation for me. So pardon me while I wing it. In fact, I'm probably going to have to go ahead and reshare this to one of my other platforms, right? For lack of a better term. So let me do that real quick. You guys should be there. Share it again to my public page. And I will explain what it is that we're going to do. All right, so everything's up on the up and up now. I hope. God forbid, right? At any rate, it's important to get this on Anchor and Spotify, as well as Cyber FM. And my only concern is that this one will run a little long. I am, for all intents and purposes, very unique. I am a conservative with conservative values, registered as a Republican. I did vote for Trump this time around, and I'm a disabled American. And just to explain that what we're going to do today is we are going to go through Joe Biden's plans for people with disabilities that he introduced in his campaign. I want to be perfectly clear. Like I said, I'm registered as a Republican. I voted for Trump. And at the same time, I looked heavily at Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders strictly because of what they were outlining for the civil rights for Americans with disabilities. Which means I'd like to think I'm a little bit open-minded, right? Because I also, for some of us that already know me, I met with Andrew Yang and discussed with him, person to person, about his views and what he was looking to do with his presidential candidate run, and it didn't work out. He did not. And listen, I was all, Yang Gang, that was cool. But he's young, he's inexperienced, and when it came to civil rights specifically for disabled people, he just didn't have it. But I gave it a shot. I was open to that. And Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders, they were on point from what I was led to believe, based on these types of campaign things that you see on the web. So Joe Biden, for all intents and purposes, currently is considered to be the next president of the United States. And I am more than happy to indulge that. I'm not one of those guys that was like running around with a Trump flag on my truck, because I'm more worried about regular conservative values in the Senate and the House, and, your congressmen, your legislators, your mayors. Politics goes far above and beyond one guy, right? And it should never be the case. I'm probably going to get a lot of crap for this. A lot of people know that in the rock and roll side of life, I'm very loud, I'm very outspoken, but I'm also going to try to be very honest and unbiased. I'm going to try to be unbiased. No promises. And the way that this is going to work out right now is that I'm going to read this Biden plan for full participation and equality for people with disabilities. I want you to know that I have never read it before. You are going to see my natural reaction. You're going to hear my thoughts fresh. I made sure I didn't read it. I blocked it away. I didn't want to look at it because I want it to be natural. I want whether or not you think my views are wrong or bad or good and positive, these are my views, and there's a lot of other disabled Americans that are not Democrats. That might be hard to believe when you listen to regular media. That might be hard to believe when you look online with the idea that no pun intended, the squeaky wheel gets the oil. But it is true. And there's a reason why it's true. So and like I said, I want to be quick, but I feel like I want to give everybody, especially who's not disabled, and people who are disabled that are liberal and Democrat for whatever reason, which they're great people, don't get me wrong, I looked at Elizabeth Warren. I looked at Bernie Sanders. There's no reason to ever be a purist. You know, some people are pure libertarians. But here's why. Here's my explanation as to why, by default, I fall to the side of conservative values and I vote Republican. And this goes all the way back to 1938. In 1938, we had created Senator Black, a Democrat senator, created the Fair Labor Standards Act. And obviously went through its process as a bill to become a law that FDR pushed into law. FDR, also a Democratic president. Now, in 1938, times were different. Times were different just 6 months ago. But we know in 1938, there was nobody had civil rights, right? Unless you were a white guy, purely, like they talk about today, 1938, you had to be a white guy. And that was it. And the Fair Labor Standards Act said that everybody is available to have a minimum wage and overtime. And I think it was set at that point. Don't quote me, but I think it was set to that 1.5 time and a half rule right then and there in 1938. There was no mention by the Democratic politicians that pushed the Fair Labor Standards Act in 1938 of disabled people. And I accept that. I think that's fine because it was 1938. Have you watched The Little Rascals? Very unpolitically correct to today's standards. Perfectly okay. The problem is, 1964 came about. 1964, we got the world famous Civil Rights Act of 1964. It was, and I am not taking away from any of the major milestones and accomplishments that happened in 1964. The win for people of all races, colors, religions, nationalities, sex, and eventually sexual orientation. These were amended acts from 1957 and 1960 combined in 1964 for civil rights. This was proposed by America's favorite John F. Kennedy. And my disabled mother will tell you that John F. Kennedy was probably one of the greatest presidents of the United States. She's a registered Republican, I believe. Don't kill me, Mom. But she will tell you JFK was a fantastic president. And I believe her because I was that alive. She was in high school. It was proposed by him, pushed in by Lyndon B. Johnson, who was also a Democratic president. If you notice, I am saying, so far, everybody we've named are Democrats. The Civil Rights Act of 1964 had absolutely zero mention of people with disabilities. So, we went from 1938 to 1964 worrying about the civil rights of people of color, religion, gender, sexual orientation, national origin, the whole nine. But we didn't worry about people with disabilities. And in 1964, it was still the situation where children who were disabled were not allowed to go to public school. They had to go to special school. They were segregated into the basements of public schools sometimes, if they were lucky, like in Brooklyn, New York. But they weren't allowed to be up on floor level or higher. They weren't allowed to interact with the regular kids. Who knows? Polio, COVID of 1964. Excuse me. I don't have it. Trust me. Now, that is where I get a little concerned. By 1964, when we were talking about people of color and race and religion and sex and all of that, you really couldn't throw a bone to the people who were disabled. But that's all right. It happened. So far, not liking the history of the Democratic Party with people with disabilities. So far. Then came the 1970s. And I am not going to discuss the 1970s too much, because when it comes to civil rights for people with disabilities in the 1970s, it was an absolute disgrace. I'm not even sure if that's the proper word. I mean, things were said by the President of the United States, Jimmy Carter, who was a Democrat, that a lot of people loved. All right, Georgia is all about Jimmy Carter. Even up until more recently, Jimmy Carter's out doing fantastic things for people, and he's 93 years old. He's 96 now, right? Jimmy Carter, and I'm not going to touch the 70s too much, but when the Bill of Rights for disabled people came about, which is not even worth mentioning, but if you're going to Google something, Google the Section 504 protests. And this is what I'm going to cover with the 1970s. The Section 504 protests were, to this very day, in 2020, the record-breaking, longest-running protest in the United States history. I'm talking about, you guys like to speak about Black Lives Matter, LGBT community, Antifa, all of that. The Proud Boys, I don't care. Anything. All of these protesters, all of these organizations, all of these physical protests do not hold a candle to the length of time of the disabled population Section 504 protests. The reason why you don't know that it is the longest running protest in American history is because we don't talk about it. That's the epitome, that is the definition of suppression. You are hearing about it probably for the first time from me. And when you're done, you're going to go Google it and go, oh my God, I won't talk about the stuff that went on. But it makes a lot of recent protests look pretty angelic. It was civil disorder, and it was by handicapped people. Fun fact, everybody knows who Geraldo Rivera is. Geraldo Rivera was nobody. He was a news anchor up in New York and Long Island for, I want to say, ABC 7 News. The reason why Geraldo Rivera has a career today is because he was the only news anchor in New York and in the nation that said, I am getting in this van and I'm going to go down to the White House and the congressional offices and I'm going to cover what these handicapped people are doing in the buildings of the Section 504 protests. And everybody told him, don't do it. It's not newsworthy. Nobody cares. He did it, and it was the news coverage that made him who he is today. A lot of people think it's the Al Capone deal where he opened it up and there's crap there. It wasn't that. It was the Section 504 protests. The 1970s were so bad for disabled people. Jimmy Carter, your Democratic president, 1977, said to them, and a bunch of senators, I'm going to say something in a minute as well, the senators, the legislators, they agreed with Jimmy Carter when Jimmy Carter said, I am not going to send money and divert money into this particular Section 504 of the Civil Rights for Disabled People because it had to do with curb cuts, wheelchair ramps, handicap parking, wide doors for entries into stores and buildings. Things like that. This is what they were fighting for. Jimmy Carter, your beloved president, said, I am not going to divert money there because we're talking about handicapped people. They don't go out. They don't go shopping. They don't work. Why are we going to cut? If you don't believe me, and I'm not quoting him, but I'm pretty damn close. It was that bad. So far, I hope that we have a better understanding as to why I hold no faith when it comes to Democratic politicians talking about civil rights for disabled Americans. Do not misunderstand me. Republicans are pretty bad. Republicans are pretty bad for people with disabilities, but there's a difference. And you can even relate that difference to when Donald Trump mocked the reporter. When Donald Trump mocked a reporter, my personal opinion was, I'll take a mocking well before I take an actual legislative action that restricts my growth as a human, my civil rights. You can make fun of me all you want because you're all making fun of me, but I didn't believe that Trump was going to actually do anything that took away wheelchair ramps and etc. But I'm getting ahead. Trump's no longer our president, apparently. So, we're in the 70s. The 80s, there was really no big movement. But I will say this. The 1980s, I think we can all agree, was centered around capitalism. Remember yuppies? Remember the cell phone? Remember the famous cell phone call in that front-wheel drive Chrysler LeBaron? This is what the 80s was about. It was about being rich. It was about being cool. Did you know that the mall was invented in the 1980s because we needed a way to bring as many shoppers into one centralized location to spend money? That's what the 80s was. And we've got something out of the 80s that we don't give credit for. And that is the high-performance wheelchair. Because of capitalism, because of entrepreneurship, because of startups and everybody wanting to make money, Sunrise Medical created the Quickie wheelchair. The Quickie wheelchair, which was a capitalist product, extremely expensive, although we were spending $3,000 on Apple Macintoshes because we had so much money. The Quickie wheelchair allowed for people with disabilities to actually go out and move about freely. And you know what that meant? That meant they were able to put their wheelchair in their car on their own. They were able to go to jobs and work on their own. They were able to go shopping thanks to the curb cuts that Jimmy Carter didn't want to implement in the sidewalks because the wheelchair was durable, extremely lightweight, and malleable. It was able to move. It was, to this day, Quickie is a leader alongside, we got other companies out of that. We got Tylite. We got Everson Jennings. Everson Jennings was only making those fancy-dancy chrome 50-pound hospital wheelchair. They got into it. There's a whole bunch of companies now. And that's from the 80s forward. So I credit, there's a point, ding ding, for capitalism for helping Americans with disabilities move forward. We got the 1930s, the 1960s, the 1970s was a disgrace. The 80s, we have a check mark for Republicans because Republicans are pro-capitalism. That's the most I'm not giving them a lot of credit. That's the most I'm giving them. Then 1990 occurred. We are celebrating now our 30th anniversary of what's called the Americans with Disabilities Act. The Americans with Disabilities Act is mostly known as being a bipartisan set of laws. So you hear arguments about you can't say that Republicans are good or bad, and you can't say that Democrats are good and bad because they put together the ADA. And I am not going to take away any value about the Americans with Disabilities Act. One of the very first startups that I personally ever created with my team that I still work with to this day was an enhancement of the Americans with Disabilities Act laws. I brought the Americans with Disabilities Act law, one particular law in the Act, to a 21st century standard, and it took off. We all know I make jokes. I own a lot of cars. I got a nice house. I got nice toys. Capitalism. And that particular product that I built, I'm not gonna shill it here because the niche audience for it is probably 9 people. It had to do with gas. And the American with Disabilities Act said that all handicapped drivers can get gas as full service without paying extra. Because you don't get the wheelchair out of the car, pump the gas, whatever. Florida, Georgia, Pennsylvania, Virginia, all those states with self-serve gas, this made it where someone like my mother can roll up to the gas pump and have an attendant come out and pump her gas. Because makes life a little bit easier, makes life more independent, and saves you some time. It's a great, the American, and there's a lot of other laws in the Americans with Disabilities Act that got us a lot of accomplishments. I have a negative thing to say. We all know that when bills and packages and plans are negotiated, there's a lot of back and forth. Bills and packages and laws and acts are never what they originally are. They argue, they filibuster, they ask for removals. And one of the things that was removed in the Americans with Disabilities Act was finally allowing disabled Americans to have a minimum wage. Yeah, you heard that right. So, and a spoiler alert, I know a lot of people don't know this, but in 2020, disabled Americans do not legally have a minimum wage. So, I don't mean to sound coarse, but I hope all of you black, transgender, Jewish people of every possible minority class that exists out there, I hope you appreciate that you have a minimum wage, because there is only one minority class in the entire United States that does not, and that's disabled people. If you are a black, transgendered, lesbian, Jewish female, and I don't even know if that works, you have a minimum wage at your local Walmart. But if you are a black, Jewish, transgendered, lesbian, disabled female, you're out the door, no minimum wage. In fact, by law, they can pay you in Burger King coupons. If you do not believe me, I am not here to spew misinformation. Google paying disabled people with coupons and why it's legal. It's disturbing. That is a law that exists today. In 2009, Barack Obama, now listen, I voted for Barack Obama in 2008, and I'm a Republican. I voted for Barack Obama in 2008. And I'll edit that out later. That's how upset I get on this one. My blood pressure literally went up. I could feel it. I voted for Barack Obama in 2008. In 2009, Barack Obama updated the Fair Labor Standards Act. This man who ran going to be a lot of editing going on. Wow, I'm pissed off. I don't mean to be. So this man who ran on disability rights in 2008, intending, much like we see right now with Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders, and Joe Biden, he ran on disability rights. And in 2009, Barack Obama updated the Fair Labor Standards Act to ensure the LGBT community and a few other minority classes received fair wages in the workplace. Barack Obama completely ignored adding disabled people in 2009 to the exemption list for minimum wage. Again, not here to lie to you. I'm here to tell you why I have a hard time believing any politician when it comes to disabilities, but especially knowing history because of Democrats. If you ask my opinion, we were lied to. Flat out lied to. Now, a lot of you voted for Obama. I voted for Obama. And after that happened, that was pretty much the writing on. I said, oh, okay, I got lied. Now, if you're disabled in America, you tend to we're complacent. We don't care. You know what? Every minority class you need your rights. I'm with you. We even try to jump bandwagons, right? Now there's rainbows for handicapped people, and now and watch what I say, but we are not going to accomplish anything for ourselves. So we have to jump on the LGBT bandwagon or the Black Lives Matter bandwagon. It's the only way we can get anything. And yet we still get nothing. In 2010, Barack Obama wanted to update the Americans with Disabilities Act. Finally. All right. Maybe this is our shining moment. We have a Democratic president who is acknowledging updates to a 20-year-old at the time law. What he did was he updated the Americans with Disabilities Act once again, so now we've got one Democratic president to do it twice, to completely ignore minimum wage for handicapped people, which is not meant to work. He updated the Americans with Disabilities Act with a few aspects, but the bad one was, or I should say the worst one was, the ability to sue. Again, I'm a capitalist. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a Republican. I'm conservative. Blah, blah, blah. Lawsuits don't help people. Lawsuits hurt businesses. And if you really want to make handicapped people look bad, go down to Jacksonville, Florida. Hire one of those cowboy hat wearing lawyers and say, my rights have been discriminated against. And have that lawyer scream to a hotel, you're not letting the disabled people in your hotel. We're suing you for $26 million. You know what you get out at the end of the day? This is really bad. I'm embarrassed. You know what you get at the end of the day? You get a bunch of hotel owners going, fucking handicapped people, Jesus Christ. I can't believe I just lost that lawsuit. Because 3 guys might come and stay at my hotel in the next 10 years. You just added a negative connotation by allowing us to go sue. We love money. We're going to sue everybody all the time. This didn't benefit the Americans with Disabilities Act at all. It absolutely did not. And then we won't even discuss Obamacare. That might be a totally separate, dedicated, if I could learn how to stop coughing, interview, podcast. You could tell the radio. I mean, radio, we have a cough button. You hardly know when I cough. This is different. So, here we are. We're not going to discuss Obamacare. I could do a show about how it ruined the lives of 20 million disabled Americans out of the 60, which some people argue, hey, it's only a third. I want to go through now. It's already been 37 minutes, 30 minutes, call it a half hour. Let's get through this, because I'm going to stay open-minded. I hope you understand that since 1938, through one of the greatest presidents ever, President Obama, we have shat on and treated people with disabilities, lied to people with disabilities, and continued to ignore people with disabilities, even when we promised not to. Which brings me to the Biden plan for full participation and equality for people with disabilities. Probably not going to be able to get through the whole thing. I have not read it. I'm reading it now for the first time. Joe Biden believes that everyone should be treated with dignity and having a fair shot at getting ahead. Absolutely. This year, on July 26th, we will mark the 30th anniversary of the American with Disabilities Act. I said that earlier. Thanks to the leadership of people with disabilities, disability advocates, and their allies, we have made progress towards the goals of this law. Equal opportunity full participation, independent living, and economic self-sufficiency for people with disabilities. But there is much more work to do in order to ensure that all people with disabilities are able to participate fully in our communities and enjoy the same kinds of choices and opportunities that many Americans take for granted. I absolutely agree with you, Joe Biden. If you had said that, you'd almost have my vote. Listen, I like it. There's a problem that we're ignoring, but I like it. You've admitted right here. This is not anything to brag about. Given what we've learned today from 1938 through 2010, there's nothing here to brag about. In 30 years, he says, and I quote, "We have made progress towards the goals of this law." He says it right there. Maybe I'm crazy. Nothing should take 30 years. In 30 years, I went from being born to enjoying Saturday morning cartoons, to going to school, to getting a college education, to graduating, to getting a job, getting married, and having a kid. I did that in 30 years. That's progress. We have not made progress towards the goals of this law in 30. It should say, and what it does say to me, is that it's been 30 years where we last rolled out a good law. Set it and forget it, what we used to say on CB radio. Set it and forget it. Streamlabs needs a... Oh, you know what? It does have a mute button. Look at that. I found the mute button. Son of a bitch. Thank God for my radio knowledge. Let's scroll up. We're not going to make it through this whole thing. At the beginning of the Obama-Biden administration, our country faced a significant economic downturn. President Obama tapped Vice President Biden to implement a stimulus package to improve our economy and financial well-being of millions of Americans. You could tell I've never read this. This is live. Today, our country is once again facing enormous economic challenges brought on by the pandemic and the impact it is having on businesses and workers across the globe. As President Biden will lead an effort to rebuild our economy, he will build an economy that is more inclusive, more just, more accessible for millions of Americans with disabilities and their families. I think you said a lot right there. It sounds, again, I'm with you. I hope it's true. But you could have cut that down to one paragraph. He will build an economy that is more inclusive, more just, and more accessible. Call it right there. You're good. Quit while you're ahead, Biden. Biden will work with the disability community to build a stronger, more expansive middle class so that everyone, regardless of race, gender, religion, sexual orientation, or disability, can find a place. That means amending our laws, policies, and culture to ensure full inclusion of the 61 million individuals with disabilities in the United States and all parts of our society. Stop. I do not question the number. But the census that has just occurred, you're probably correct, right? 61 million individuals with disabilities in the United States. Now, I happen to know for a fact, and again, I'm not here to mislead anybody. You please research for yourself. I always encourage that. 61 million individuals with disabilities. 20%, which is 12 million, give or take, are what you would consider mainstream, full-time employed, successfully well-off people with disabilities. That's 12 million. Another 10%, which is 6 million, and if we're going to be exact, according to Biden, we'll say 6.1 million, have jobs. So now, keep in mind, those jobs don't have minimum wage, maybe, but they have jobs. So what we have is 12 plus 6. We have 18 million disabled Americans who do go to work, hopefully every day. And if we do the math out of that, then you've got much less. But all 61 million should count. I just don't think that speaking for all 61 million is fair. Right? Now, I want to be the politically correct guy. And I want to say, there are people like me, quite frankly, that don't count. I don't count. Unless coughing becomes a disability, right? I don't count in any of this number. It is true that I don't have a minimum wage. It is true that I've suffered some financial disparities from employers that insisted on installing electric doors and stuff like that because they knew they would get a tax credit with a reasonable accommodation. Meanwhile, in all honesty, I should be opening the door for you. I don't need an electric door. I don't count myself as a part of the 61 million individuals with disabilities that need help. And I am willing to believe that there's a good 12 million like me. Now, don't get me wrong. Being in need is the new black. We all want to be in need. I make jokes personally that everybody wants that blue parking permit. You stub your toe, you go on disability, and here I am sitting in a wheelchair. And I bite my tongue. I can imagine what people of color feel like when they hear racial comments, or I get it, because I see some construction worker who pulled his back. Oh, my back is killing me. I got to take 6 weeks off and get disability. And I literally almost have the right to say, "Don't you be a fucking man. Grit your fucking teeth, pop an aspirin, and go to work." I do. I got to move on. Biden will prioritize enacting and implementing policies that break down the barriers to access for people with disabilities living and succeeding in their chosen communities. It means good jobs, competitive, integrated employment, affordable, accessible, and integrated housing, accessible and affordable transportation, inclusive voting processes, because Lord knows we want that vote, and any needed long-term services and supports. Fine, great. Why haven't we done this in the past 30 years? Joe Biden, who's been there for 47 years, if anybody has seen 47 years of the complete oversight and just ignoring of disabled people, it's Joe Biden. Say what you want about AOC. She has not had that opportunity. Trump has not had that opportunity. Ted Cruz has not had that opportunity. But Joe Biden, you sat there for 47 years. You're admitting that the past 30 really accomplished nothing for Americans, and now you're going to fix it. I really hope you do. I want you to. But I hope you can see why I don't believe you. I'm not happy with this. President Trump and Republicans in Congress have attempted to repeal Obamacare. We're not. I'm sorry, guys. I'm not. I see words like undermine the ADA, making it harder for people with disabilities to file claims. Listen, I'm not. That's going to be its own show. I will say this. Thank God that I am wealthy and successful. Yeah, and I'm going to brag. I have the American dream. I've lived the American dream. I'm good to go. I got toys, I got cars, I got house. Look, I got stuff, man. I'm good. The ADA. Because of the ADA, not because of the ADA, I apologize. I will say this about Obamacare. My entire life, I was born disabled. I have bone disease, osteogenesis imperfecta. Go ahead and Google that too. It's supposed to break bones. I don't break bones. I break rules. I don't break bones. But I've spent my entire life in a wheelchair. And remember we talked about the 80s? I was young. I was 10. I remember the conversation. Now I want you to keep something in mind. Oh man, I didn't want to get into Obamacare. But I want you to keep something in mind about the whole thing. My mother has osteogenesis imperfecta. Not only does my mother, we call it OI. Not only does my mother have OI, my mother has no legs. They were amputated as a teenager. I can't imagine. Because that's what the cool thing was to do back then, right? In the 60s. And she didn't even make that decision. Her father made that decision for her. Your legs don't fucking work. You got to get rid of them. So she's a double amputee with OI. You want to talk about mobility challenges. To this day, my mother, who is 76 years old, drives a two-door Kia Forte Sport Coupe. The car is pretty much the same size as the wheelchair. Shout out to Chuck at East Coast Customs for developing, back to capitalism, developing a handicapped aid that he invented to fit inside this Kia Forte Coupe because my mom wanted that car that pulls the wheelchair into the back seat. My father is also handicapped, and he's 80. He is 84 years old. He has a disease called arthrogryposis. You know that disease as disabled reporter that Trump mocked. Trump mocked the disabled reporter and the entire world. Everybody, all of a sudden, and here's another insulting thing. All of you suddenly cared. You didn't care from 1938 all the way through when your President Obama was ignoring us for minimum wage and ADA modifications. But the minute that Trump mocked the reporter with arthrogryposis, everybody became the biggest disability advocate in the world. And I know for a fact that a lot of disabled people went, I'm sorry, who the fuck are you? You did not. Guys, I got bad news for you. Trump won. You know how they say Trump won back in 2016? Trump won because Trump won because you called them deplorables. Trump won because you slighted some other group. And Trump won because a bunch of handicapped people were reminded that you only care about us when it fits your narrative. It's true. It's absolutely true. Nobody gave a shit about Trump. There was some, Trump didn't mock him. He did mock him. He kind of did. And my father, who was in his 80s at the time, said, wish that son of a bitch would mock me. I could use the money. No, nobody gets upset. You can mock me all day long. As long as you're not taking something away from me or promising me something that I'm never going to have. Just go ahead and mock. It's nothing compared to what the past 70 some odd years has been. Up into including Obama. So, I didn't want to get into Obamacare. I discussed in the 80s with capitalism. I remember my first quickie wheelchair. It was so cool. It felt like I wasn't even in a wheelchair. It was mind-blowing. I took that thing out, man. I was wheeling to school. I was doing it all. It was mind-blowing. And ever since Obamacare came into play, no insurance company in the world will buy me one. I don't need one. I don't deserve one. I've spent $18,000 since 2008 on the wheelchair that I need. Cash. Again, people don't like braggers. I'm not trying to brag. Not too many of you who are perfectly able-bodied are willing to blow $18,000 on something, right? If it's not a car. I'm spending $18,000 on something that I absolutely have to have. And specifically, last year, I spent $6,000 on one. Not that I don't, believe me, I don't want to. Without this wheelchair, I don't live. And thanks to Obamacare said, no. A, you've already got a wheelchair, so who are you to think that you deserve two? And if we do give you one, it's going to weigh 55 pounds. And your wife's not going to be able to help you move it. The two of you can go crazy. So tell me again about Obamacare and pre-existing conditions. Because I'm telling you my story. And I am shopping right now for another wheelchair. Another $6,000. Thank God I've got the money. Thank God. Could you imagine if I didn't have the money? That's what these other 40-some-odd million Americans that they're talking about right now. They don't have the money. Yeah, like that, the mute button. And the dog's getting all excited. Now, see, but this is why I said I'm going to read this live, because I get upset. I'm not going to cover more Obamacare, Medicaid, supplemental security income, the worst thing to ever happen to disabled people. I will say this, if you are a parent and your child is disabled, and anybody says to you, oh, you get them on SSI, don't do it. You will ruin your child's life, and I will do a whole nother show about that, because it did ruin mine. Where are we? It ruined mine temporarily. I made enough money in life to get out of debt with the federal government. And when I say out of debt, I am talking about 6 figures. Because somebody thought it was smart to put me in SSI. Biden recognizes that we need to review all policies, from climate change and the economy to education and housing. I don't give a shit about any of that. We're talking about the people who are disabled. He will ensure people with disabilities have a voice in their government and are good. So that's nice, right? What are we saying? He's going to ensure that disabled people will have a view on climate change. Disabled guys, if you're disabled and you're listening, able-bodied people, close your ears for a moment. This is for the disabled people. You ain't got a fucking minimum wage. You ain't allowed to roll around in a wheelchair. You're not allowed to marry your own kind. You really give a fuck about climate change? There's plenty of handicapped people that are out there going, I got a great spot picked out on top of a mountain. Bring the fucking asteroid. Why should I care about the climate for you people who can walk around perfectly fine when I'm not even allowed to fucking own a car? All right. Climate change. Get the fuck out of here. Handicapped people, it's time for you to worry about your civil rights. You want a voice on climate change? You're not even allowed to own a car that can harm the climate. We'll discuss that with what's called SSI asset resource limitations. Ensure full inclusion of people with disabilities in policy development would aggressively enforce the civil rights of people with disabilities. As what? Your Democratic Party has been for the past 47? No. It's nice. I love it. I love it. I hope it's true. I want it to be true. But I know it's not true. Not yet. Guarantee access to high quality, affordable health care. No, not doing it. Not doing it. My life was fantastic when I had private health insurance. My son was born for $0. We got diapers for free. And I got a wheelchair that year. Ridiculous. Competitive integrative employment opportunities for people with disabilities. No mention of minimum wage, so don't want to hear it. Protect and strengthen economic security for people with disabilities. I'm going to take a shot in the dark and assume that means raising their Social Security 1.7%. Unless you're during the Obama years, by the way. A couple of Obama years, the 0% there. We forget, right? Pepperidge Farms remembers. Students with disabilities have access to educational programs. Yeah. Get a college degree. I thought we don't teach kids that anymore. My kids got a college degree. But we don't tell people to get college, not even if you're disabled or able-bodied. Advance global disability rights. Beautiful. Let's do it. I'd love to advance global disability rights. It would be really helpful if America could get their shit in order first. We talk about how America is the leader, and countries like the UK, Europe, Germany, France, England, Romania, even the Ukraine, right? All these countries, South America, Venezuela, Brazil, Chile, Mexico, they all look at us, they look towards us on how to live and how to behave. You want to advance global disability rights and you can't get our shit right. That's not a goal. You're not going to pull that off in 4 years. You haven't pulled it off in 47. Again, this is what I don't like about it. I would be saying the same exact thing if this was Trump's webpage. I promise you. I swear to you. Personal opinion. When you hear that Republicans don't talk about people with disabilities, they're not doing this. They're not fluffing your ass and rubbing ice on your nipples to try to get you all aroused because they know they will let you down. The Republicans know that they will let you down as a disabled American. The Democrats fucking lie to you. I could be wrong. I would love to see all that. I would love to see this. I see links. And it's already been an hour. We are so screwed. Ensure full inclusion of people with disabilities in policy development and aggressively enforce the civil rights. How many times are we going to say that? How many times are we going to talk? By the way, not for nothing, this is heavily plagiarized by Bernie Sanders. Any Bernie Sanders supporters listening, I feel for you, man. I see the words. It's little Elizabeth Warren, a lot of Bernie Sanders in here. Maybe we'll get away with saying that Bernie contributed to Joe Biden. Yeah, he did. Sure. Uh-oh. The dog's going to be barking, and we're on a good spot here. And I'm going to try to talk right into the... Yeah, it's not going to work out. Check me out. I got water too. All right? Water. Now I'm not going to cough no more. This is good. We'll call this part 2 when I edit it down. You guys get to watch it live. It's even better, right? When it's on Cyber FM and Spotify and Anchor, you're not going to hear any of this. Here we go. Throughout his career, Biden has fought for the rights and opportunities for people with disabilities. Really? I thought we just covered that. Working to pass anti-discrimination protections in the Americans with Disabilities Act? Right. Because that was bipartisan. Except for the part where we had to remove the minimum wage. The Rehab Act of 1973. Fun fact, on the website, right here. There's no link to it. You see my mouse? I don't know if you can. There's no link because they're embarrassed by that one. The Fair Housing Amendments Act of 1988. Don't even. The original Individuals with Disabilities Education Act of 1975. That was the act. Believe it or not, this might sound shocking to you if you're not disabled. That was the act where they said handicapped people are allowed to go to public school. We finally got to hang out with the black kids and the white kids. Lord knows the black kids were already allowed to go to school. So it was 1975, the year I was born, that we were finally allowed to go participate and get a normal education. I shit you not. This is real life here, guys. And the Affordable Care Act of 2010 has, again, I'm not touching that. Now, insured people with disabilities are included in policy development by creating a senior position. They're going to give one handicapped guy a job. Great. Biden will appoint a director of disability policy to ensure that these issues receive the attention they deserve at the highest level. The senior White House official, well, he's not going to hire me. I guess we threw that out there. Can I just erase all this? Because I'll take the job. I'm going to follow up on this. And I mean that within 4 years. I want to know who he hires. Is it Joey, the construction worker who stubbed his toe and broke his kneecap? It's not going to be, okay. The position will ensure the administration is getting diverse perspectives. Okay. Health and Human Services, Education, Labor, Housing, HUD, Transportation, State. This is all great stuff. Not going to happen. We're saying it again. Aggressively enforce existing civil rights laws for people with disability. Yeah, really, like you have been for the past, not only your 47 years, but the past 72 years, right? Is it 82? It's 82 years, I'm sorry. 1938. The ADA, there's a link. Fair Housing Act, we don't care. Civil Rights of Institutionalized Persons Act, I don't know, it's not an issue for me, and I'm not going to have an opinion on it either way. Help America Vote Act, you always want to get, listen, if the handicapped people need to do anything, it's vote. Y'all don't need to be getting married, getting jobs, doing all that shit, just as long as you vote. Blah, 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 I'm losing interest. Biden recognizes that people with disabilities who are also people of color and LGBTQ plus often face greater discrimination based on the intersection of yes, okay. If you are a person of color, I said, isn't this kind of great? I told you I did not read this, and I said it earlier. If you're a black, Jewish, lesbian, transgendered person, you ain't fucked until you're in a wheelchair. Then it's now there's a problem. We could have solved all your other problems, but your legs don't work so good. Now it's let's see. They will aggressively enforce those civil rights based on your protections through the Equality Act and the Paycheck Fairness Act. Now, I want you to hold on a second. We're going to get through this, I swear. This is a good spot right here. We're talking about race, gender, gender identity, sexual orientation, while we enact stronger protections through new legislation, including the Equality Act and the Paycheck Fairness Act. I want you to know that I already know all about the Paycheck Fairness Act. And here's where we get mad. This might probably, we're just going to probably end this here. I want you to understand what we're looking at. And I don't want it to be true. I can't stress that enough. I would love for all this stuff to be true. But here's how you know a politician, left, right, middle, I don't care. Here's how you know a politician is lying to you and admitting it's openly lying to you. And we're going to see that right now. The Paycheck Fairness Act. Why is it mentioned on the disabilities page for Joseph Biden? Because disabled people do not have a minimum wage. Disabled people will most likely never have a minimum wage. It's been 82 years. We don't even need it at this point. We either collect government benefits and live off the fat of the land, or we give everybody the big middle finger. We say, fuck you. We get a college degree, and we make $450,000 a year in our career. Case in point, here I am. The Paycheck Fairness Act is right here. You see that? And there's a hyperlink. And when you click it, I want to do this correctly. Oh, I already had it up. So, I'm not even going to... Nobody wants to read these. Nobody ever reads these. Why would you? Look at it. Oh. What does that say? Caught it with my eye. Fair Labor Standards Act 1938. Look at that. Oh, there it is again. Oh, there it is again. Negotiation skills. All right. What do we got? Research, education. Okay. Establishment of national award pay equity in the workplace. Great. Nobody reads these. I'll tell you why. The summary. I'm not even going to read the whole summary to you, because I already know about this. The bill addresses wage discrimination on the basis of sex. Period. Do you want me to repeat that? The bill addresses wage discrimination on the basis of sex. And there's a period right there. Right. There's your summary. It amends equal pay provisions of the Fair Labor Standards Act of 1938. There we are. To this day, in 2020, we are making laws. We are enhancing laws that go back as far as 82 years. Equal Opportunity Employment Commission, blah, 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 blah. Okay, here you go. Here you go. Here you go. The bill directs the Department of Labor to establish and carry out a grant program for negotiation skills, training programs to address pay disparities, including through outreach to women and girls. Conduct studies to eliminate pay disparities between men and women. And 3, report on the gender pay gap in the teenage labor workforce. And make all of that available information on wage discrimination to assist the public in understanding and addressing such discrimination. Now, to finish off, I'm going to go back to the text that nobody reads. Hit Command F, and I'm going to type the word nope, nothing. Wait. Ability. We've got the word liability, availability, liability again, and severability. Okay, no, disability or ability. Handicap. No. Hey, how about wheelchair? No. Mental. Nope. Governmental and instrumental, but no mental. No. So, I'm not going to make a statement. If the Paycheck Fairness Act blatantly describes that they are ignoring no reference at all to Americans with disabilities, and the Paycheck Fairness Act clearly outlines its goal to update the Fair Labor Standards Act of 1938 for women and teenagers, why is it on the disabilities page? I'll tell you why it's on the disabilities page. It's on Joe Biden's disabilities page because he wants you, the village idiot, whether you're handicapped or not, you're the village idiot, to say, well, Joe Biden has the Paycheck Fairness Act on his disabilities page, therefore he must be talking about, but it's for women and teenagers. It's literally there for no reason whatsoever. It serves no purpose for being on the Biden plan for blah, 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 blah. Look at this shit. This is how you're being lied to. This is where I stop. I don't care to insure people with disabilities in the police department. Aggressively, there we are again, aggressively. How many times are we going to... You're not aggressively enforcing shit. You're putting a Paycheck Fairness Act. My apologies, I'm rereading the paragraph I was on. So that one time it's not a repeat of the word aggressively enforce. There is absolutely no evidence, no documented reason to even mention the Paycheck Fairness Act on the disabilities page because it is not for people with disabilities. And from there, I don't care what any of this. Immediately revoke the Trump administration's public charge rule, which discriminates against immigrants with disability. Look, protects people with disabilities from abuse and violence. I got no problem telling you, you don't want to fucking go with me at a bar. I've done it. Why aren't we proud that the average person who pushes a manual wheelchair can make their pecs down? I can't even. We're stronger than able-bodied people. The only abuse and violence that we get is fucking crybaby snowflakes that, oh, you hurt my feelings. You called me a cripple. Yes, don't get me wrong. I understand that there are people with severe disabilities, and abuse runs rampant in nursing homes and in hospitals, and quite frankly with families. So maybe I shouldn't say what I'm saying. But why doesn't Joe Biden create an act where we teach self-defense courses for people in wheelchairs? Or we enhance the Second Amendment And maybe we change the Second Amendment for people, and you know, instead of assuming that they're poor, helpless, in danger cripples. I can't. I'm not going to. I am not discrediting the amount of abuse and violence that goes on. But you know what? It happens to women. That's what I'm saying. You know, women with disabilities at college campuses report higher rates of sexual assault relative to those without a disability. I mean, that sucks. But it's still a woman's issue. All right? Women have this problem, and it absolutely needs to be resolved. Don't get me wrong. I'm a card-carrying member of I will shoot a motherfucker if I see him raping a chick. I don't care if she's in a wheelchair or not. I don't think it's a thing. I don't think it should be dwelled upon. But it appeases people, just like, why is the Paycheck Fairness Act there? Because he must care about you, but he's lying to you. Affordable Care Act, I'm not touching it. I'm not touching it. Healthcare, I'm not touching it. You've ruined my life. Enforced parity laws. Has to do with mental health. I have a very controversial opinion with disabilities and mental health. I think that they should be handled separately. I think when we talk about disabilities, we absolutely need to address all of the needs of people with mental illnesses and mental health issues. I'm behind you 135%. But when we talk about disabilities, we need to differentiate. We provide a disservice to people when we don't differentiate, when we don't segregate in this scenario. Right? There's a reason. I'm going to do a show about handicap parking. That's going to be on the list. With no coughing and all that. I'm going to do a show about handicap parking. And you're going to hear me say something to the effect of, there's a reason why the wheelchair is the handicap symbol. Just leave it at that. But I absolutely agree that, you know, mental health, that needs to be handled. And it needs to be handled from a disability aspect. But it needs to be differentiated. It needs to be set aside so that they could get the detailed attention that they deserve. Don't throw $100 billion in a wheelchair program for somebody who has dyslexia. It doesn't work that way. Mental health professionals, paraprofessionals, yeah, I guess. We're talking about, see, this is where disabilities fully implement the HCBS final rule. They do not look, feel, or act like institutional settings. So you're going to throw a guy in a home, but it's not a home. It's got Wi-Fi. DoorDash can come. That's nice, right? Must be nice. I don't know how I feel about that. I don't. Medicaid buy-in program and modernizing Medicaid eligibility. Whole nother thing. Increase the minimum wage $15 per hour. What an insult! This look, son of a bitch! We've already established that there is no minimum wage for handicapped people. We've already established that you put the Paycheck Fairness Act on your disabilities page for absolutely no reason at all. It has no reason to exist on your page because it's for women and teenagers, not any sort of disability. So let me ask you this. Why the fuck do I care if you raise the minimum wage to $15 per hour and provide federally funded paid leave on the disabilities page when it's not relative to people with disabilities? Joe Biden, you're actually an asshole. You're actually a piece of shit for doing that. Guys, It's there in bold. Corn Pop told me when I was growing up, Jamie, because they call me Jamie, don't let nobody ever fucking lie to your face and let you believe it. If it's coming out of somebody's mouth and it doesn't sound right, it's probably not. Corn Pop is fucking right. This shit is malarkey. We just went through it. 82. Do the fucking math, James. 82 years of no minimum wage. 47 years of those 82 years is with Joe Biden. Especially if you throw in Barack Obama. We've had every opportunity in the world for the past 82 years to give handicapped people a minimum wage. You have the balls, or as my family would say, you've got the Stugats to go on your fucking website and post some bullshit about paycheck fairness. And then you post the actual text to H.R. 7. Who, of course, Rose DeLauro, the Democrat out of Connecticut. Fucking Connecticut, do me a favor. Get your own football team. Listen, this is an insult to people. This is not only an insult to disabled people. This is an insult to any genius that can fucking read. This is an insult to anybody who has the ability to make a conscious decision on their own. It's been 82 years, I can't believe I keep screwing that up, of no minimum wage for disabled people. We bring up the Paycheck Fairness Act on the Joe Biden Disabilities page, and we find out it has absolutely nothing to do with fucking disabled people, and then you put the fucking seal on the, you finish it. Increase the minimum wage to $15 per hour, and you know what they should do right here? They should be, and then laugh in the faces of the cripples of America. That should be what the fucking line is. I'm sorry, guys. This is what I preach about my entire life. Increase the minimum wage to $15 per hour, and then you rub it in the faces of all the fucking cripples that are wheeling their ass to the buses in New York City to get to their 9 to 5. I think I'm done. You might as well throw the N-word in there. Why don't you throw go ahead. We won't give a fuck. Half of us will just keep blindly voting for you anyway. That's why we'll never have a minimum wage. The Domestic Workers Bill, I'm not going to read that. Create a $5,000 tax credit for informal caregivers. Baby, you watching this video right now? I got a new job for you. You're not my wife no more. Daddy wants the $5,000 tax credit. How you doing? That sniff was on purpose. It's an Uncle Russ joke. Passing legislation that will provide 12 weeks. Who gives a fuck? Allow caregivers to make catch-up contributions. Who gives a fuck? Provide Social Security credits to people who leave the workforce to care. Who gives a fuck? Social Security, we're going to have a whole thing on Social Security. Increase the child dependent care tax credit up to 8. Can I get the... So wait, now we're talking. This is where I like Democrats. Got a $5,000 tax credit for informal caregivers. That means my boy Egypt could swing by and change my fucking diaper or some shit. We'll get him $5,000. I don't wear a diaper, ladies and gentlemen. I have osteogenesis imperfecta. Increasing the child dependent care tax to $8,000. So are we looking at $13,000? Because $13,000 is like a used Chevy Trailblazer. I mean, I don't know. Something to think about, right? You got to take advantage. This is the good thing about Democrats. If you're disabled, take advantage of every single... They take advantage of you. You're literally a slave. It's 1860 fucking 4 in the United States, and the cripples are blacks. Right? We are paid in Burger King coupons by law. That's slavery. So while the black people are screaming that they want reparation, listen, I'm not looking to upset anybody, but I hope you understand why I sometimes have to go, it must be nice. I sure fucking wish I was black. I wish I was fucking black, because at least I know that I was guaranteed that I could put food on my family's plates. But because I'm handicapped, that shit's not guaranteed. And then my president mocks me. My president fucking mocks me. Welcome to fucking 2021. Joe Biden, the president who that's mocking. You think Trump, this is what I said. Look, I'm a genius. It's just flowing right off of my head. Trump mocked the guy who pulls $150,000 fucking dollars a year, by the way, because he has a good New York Times job. Trump mocked the guy because he was a dickhead. By the way, handicapped people, in case you haven't noticed, can be dickheads. That's why Trump mocked the guy. But here's Joe Biden mocking you. Here's your disabilities page. Read about everything that I say I'm going to do for you. Oh, well, even that, except for that Paycheck Fairness, the Fairness Act, I just threw that there to fucking poke at you. Oh, and by the way, after we don't do anything with the Paycheck Fairness, I'm going to go ahead and give everybody else $15 an hour minimum wage. That's mocking, ladies and gentlemen. For you folks in the back, this is the mocking of disabled people by a politician. I wanted to be so unbiased. I liked it. I'm disgusted. I'm disgusted with this right here. Increase the minimum wage to $15 per hour and mock the fucking cripples of the United States of America. Because y'all know you need some hot blonde to take care of you anyway. I don't know what this domestic workers thing is. We've got the tax credits. I say go for the fucking tax credits. Get every fucking dime you can. You're not allowed to make money. Everybody's going to become handicapped. I want to be black, but everybody else wants to be handicapped. Safeguard workers with disabilities, rights to workplace accommodation. Yeah. I've lived that. Well, James, I'd like to give you $137,000 a year, but we're going to go ahead and make this door electric, and that's going to cost us $10,000. So would you accept an offer of $105,000? I don't fucking get out of bed for $105,000. I jerk off with $105,000. This is why. No, I'm not going to accept lesser pay for my job because you want to build an electric door that I don't need you to build. Here we go. Phase out the sub-minimum wage based on disability and work with Congress to ensure. He said it. What are you telling me, Joe? You playing with my emotions? You tugging on my heart? What the fuck is this? Phase out the sub-minimum wage based on disability and work with Congress to ensure there is funding for impacted employees with disabilities to receive support. That does not say exempt disabled people from the minimum wage exemption. It does not say that. Phase out is the same thing that Andrew Yang said to my face. Eventually, we'll work it out. I get that. Eventually, we'll take care of you. And I'm still mad about all the previous shit. So I have no reason to, you can't expect me to reasonably believe. What are we going to phase it out for? Fucking you Democrats love executive orders. Bang one out. Handicapped people deserve a minimum wage. Done. Over. It's not rocket science. I'll pass the fucking law. Phase out that he's telling you the truth. We went from he was lying to you to now he's telling you the truth. Eventually, when we're all long and dead, we'll have completed the phase and the transfer of power to finally get handicapped people $7.85 a fucking hour. I call bullshit. No, you're not. You stuck it there because you knew somebody like me was going to go through this and catch on. The Transformation to Competitive Employment Act. I'm not even, no. You don't need to do this. If anything, there's a waste of taxpayer money going on here. Sign the fucking executive order. Everybody gets a minimum wage. That's it. It's not hard. Do it. Phase out means you're not going to do it. And you proved it earlier by lying to us with your Paycheck Fairness Act. I got excited for a moment. I was like, no, fuck away, he said. No. Tax credits to employers by passing the disability employment. Why? We don't need all these acts, guys. We don't need these acts. I looked at Bernie Sanders. I looked at Elizabeth Warren. And you want kids to go to college for free? Fucking do it. I got the money. My kids' college education's paid for. Done. Told you, the American dream. My kid only has to do one thing, and that's not fail a class. Okay, let them all go to college for free. Let the handicapped people. Why don't you just assume that when we say all kids go to college for free, that we're including handicapped kids in the statement? We don't need special grants, and we don't need special tax credits. We don't need, look, they're going to, when these disabled kids go to college, they're all going to be taught that, hi Biden, hail Obama, all that shit, right? So, why not? Yes, I agree. You know what? To provide any employer hiring a person with a disability up to $5,000 tax credit the first year and $2,500 if the worker with a disability completes the second year. God forbid the worker with a disability can make it 2 years, right? We'll throw you another $2,500. Joey, you ain't going to survive another 2 years. Your job. I'm so fucking mad. And up to $30,000 in tax credits to improve the accessibility of the workforce. Why don't you take that $37,500 right there that you want to give to one employer and say, why don't you just hire 2 fucking guys and give them minimum wage? Pay the employer to pay the employee. Because they're going to soak up the tax credits. Oh, yeah. I installed a wheelchair ramp. I fixed up the elevator. I got Jimmy one of them sinks that when you put your hand under it, the water automatically shoots out. He ain't got to do nothing. And the motherfucker died on me. What a waste of money. That's what's going to happen. Don't do the tax credits, bro. You want to give money to an employer to hire handicapped people? Give them the fucking money to hire the handicapped people. Not tax credits. Provide small business resources for people with disabilities. So that they could work for Burger King coupons. This is a joke. It's a fucking joke. Biden will fully and aggressively enforce Section 503 of the Rehabilitation Act. Engage in affirmative action efforts to employ and advance employment. Listen. For those who are physically handicapped, your brain works fine. That's why I'm part of... I invented technology that stockbrokers use to this day. Your retirement plans are up in fucking some paradigm of euphoria thanks to Donald Trump, thanks to me. Because all the stockbrokers used my high-frequency trading, algorithmic swapping, software, order management systems to make you money. The fucking handicap guy did that for you. All right? There's no, and I got paid for it, man. I got paid for it, like you would know. You do know. I brag about my car as well. I got fucking paid, man. These people don't. This thing. Just hire them. Hire the people with disabilities and let them show you what they can do. Guys, I invented something for Merrill Lynch. Actually, that's a lie. It was Bear Stearns, and they're no longer around. This is why. I invented something for Bear Stearns that was called a hub and spoke network for indications of interest. I'm not going to get into it. It was essentially the version of Wall Street for social media. And you get to brag about what you traded, and it manipulated people. Oh my God, Joey sold all of his shares of Google. Why the fuck did he do that? I better go do it too. And then he would go dump. I created that. I made it so that thousands and tens of thousands of stockbrokers were able to manipulate other stockbrokers through the use of social media. It was such a, and we were told it couldn't be done. We were told it could not be done about 10 years ago. It turned out to be so successful that I shit my pants. And that's not a handicap joke. The Securities and Exchange Commission comes down. Who's this guy, James Stiley? Oh, fuck me. They had to make it illegal. They fucking made it illegal. I did that. I changed the face of Wall Street forever. Here's another quick one for you. The entire reason that the United States trades with Brazil electronically is because of James Stiley. How you doing? Look, I'm Brad. Look at me. We're not fucking talking about Biden no more. We're talking about me. CNN, fake news, right? Cable news. CNN, 12 years ago, cited that the reason Bank of America purchased Merrill Lynch, a.k.a. bailed them out, thanks Obama, was because of their trading ability with Brazil. I'm going to go ahead and say, fuck you. CNN said Bank of America purchased Merrill Lynch because of James Stiley. So don't tell me that handicapped people need some sort of one-up. Give them the job. They will perform like you've never seen them. We're talking about, right? We're talking, if you have a mental issue, then it's reasonable to assume that you're not creating technology that the government's going to want to come in and change, right, and create law. You're not up there. But then again, 97% of you able-bodied motherfuckers aren't doing it either, right? Where's all your pride now when the guy in the wheelchair is the one moving your 401ks and creating laws for Wall Street, taking one for the team? If you're in a fucking wheelchair, you don't need any of this shit. You need to fucking figure out how to get in your Ford Econoline, or if you're my mom, a Kia Forte Coupe, drive your ass to work and outperform every able-bodied motherfucker that there can be. And you will make more money. You will have no mortgage, no car payments. You know what my biggest fucking problem is in life? I have credit out there just to keep a credit score. Everybody, you can't not have credit. You got to have credit. I have shit out there just so I can have a credit. I have no debt. I don't know what a bill is. I'm the epitome of the American fucking dream, and I'm disabled. And here's Joe Biden telling you, and I did it without a minimum wage. We don't need this shit. We don't need it. 5 months waiting period for SSDI and 2-year waiting period for Medicare. Fucking write the executive order. Get it done. Look, the Social Security Administration is not a legal branch. It's a financial department. Increase the benefit level of people receiving SSI. Duh. You do that every single year at 1.1%. Unless you're Obama, then it's 0%. But outside of Obama doing 0% raises, it's 1.1, 1.2. So next year, when you pass the 1.1, you're going to go, check. I did that. I increased the benefit level of people. Yeah, right? Right? Who we kidding? So, yes, I agree that you will do that. Eliminate the 5-month waiting period for SSDI. You should. You really should. But that should be on day one. Eliminate the benefit cliff for SSDI. Earning limits under SSDI. Again, when you become handicapped in the eyes of the federal government, this is what he's talking about. You're not allowed to get married. You're not allowed to have a job. You are not allowed to look this law up if you don't believe me. In 2020, if you fall under this category, you are not allowed to own a vehicle that is worth more than $3,000. Do you know that I would not buy my son a car that was worth $3,000 right now? I'd say, son, you can't drive around in that piece of shit. It's never going to last. You're never going to make it to school. Who the fuck wants a $3,000 car? But by law, created by Democrats, you're not allowed to own a car worth more than $3,000. Unless, of course, Joe Biden fulfills his promise here. Spoiler alert, he's not going to. If he does, I want him to. Listen, I want him to. But you have 82 years of case precedent that indicates that there's no reason to. Reverse damage done to Social Security rules by the Trump. What did Trump do? What the fuck did Trump change the Social Security? Let me see. Let me see. We're all looking at it together, right? Let me help you there. There we go. Right? You can see it. What are we talking about? Or what did he do? What did he do? This doesn't even... What are you linking to? We determine a person is disabled. We periodically review the case every 3 years. I remember. Yeah, Joe, I remember. I apologize to everybody. Trump wanted to make it... it says it right here, too. Maybe I got my own fucking problems. I just went through all that. It says it right there. Trump wanted to change the review requirements to every 2 years instead of every 3 years. I'm on with that. That should be done. You know what? Not only should you have to renew your disability card every 2 years, you should probably have to renew your driver's license every 2 years. You should probably have to renew your gun license every 2 years. You should probably have to update some other What? There's no problem with this. People become... If you're not permanently disabled, and don't let the administration lie to you, the Social Security Administration has different guidelines for those that are deemed permanently disabled. What they're talking about is back to jerk-off Joey, the pussy, who hurt his kneecap in construction and decided that he's handicapped now. I say make it every 1 year. That guy only needs a year to learn the code. Remember learn the code, Democrats? Learn the code. Joey could go for, and I keep saying Joey, that's my go-to name. Now, no pun intended. Jimmy can go from being a construction worker to a JavaScript developer if you just learn the code. So none of this makes sense to me either. Strengthen the Social Security Administration? You probably mean with more laws. Invest in our children at birth. I thought you were fucking killing them at birth. I'm not going to read that. Individual Disabilities Education Act. Why? So we can go to school? Periodic screening, diagnosis, and treatment of... Yeah, all right, fine. Everybody deserves a little something. You could tell that they were running out of ideas. Ensure that students of color are not... Whoa! What? Fuck you, bro. I really did not intend for this to go this way, guys. I didn't. But you can't make this shit up. Ensure that students of color are not inappropriately identified as having disabilities, while also ensuring that students of color with disabilities have... Wow! Leave it to a fucking Democrat to say, everybody stop. That little black kid over there. I want to take a good hard look. Let's research that little black. Hey, Johnny, come over here. I want to talk to you. Yes, sir? You're black, right? Yes, sir? You got a disability? I don't think so. Well, I'm going to go ahead and give you this rigorous form of testing to see if you do or not, because we don't want to mistakenly identify you as being disabled, and because you're black, that might very well happen. That's what it says. I'm not saying it. It's what it says. Let's take a good look at black people and make sure they're not disabled. And then when we do find finally find the little black kids that are disabled, then we can, I hate to say it, segregate them to go make sure that they're taken care of. Guys, this is a fucking disgrace. I'm done. I'm done. It's a fucking disgrace. You just saw an example of every reason in the world to segregate black children. It's right there on your fucking page. I'm going to edit this thing heavily. I hope I didn't insult. I hope I did upset some of you. This was... I did not expect... I wanted to like it. I wanted to like it. I said I was going to give it a chance. This is why I'm conservative. And this is why I am just fucking done. We're going to cover a lot more in this. This is going to be an interesting series. Straighten out the coughing. Straighten out the dogs barking. You know, working from home, we've accepted... I'm on board meetings and investor calls with VCs, and I'm always like, yeah, that's Phoebe. She's a little rambunctious dachshund. And it's 2020. Now the venture capitalists go, oh, can I see her? Right? It's a new way of life, and I'm cool with it. But I'll clean it up. We're gonna decide what we do about this. I wanted it to be okay. Not for me. I'm good. I'm fine. Told you. I could brag all day. I could do a whole episode about bragging. I wanted it to be okay, but all I see is another 4 years of disabled people being fucked, and I think I proved it. At least, if I didn't prove it, I put out a pretty good argument as to why it looks that way. We will do this again, hopefully, if I haven't been assassinated. Have a good night, guys.